Hi, welcome to my channel, Klubkidz Chronicles. This is going to be vlogs about my new book, Klubkidz Chronicles, my new album, Klubkidz Chronicles, and my new mix video collection, Klubkidz Chronicles. So I'm going to be talking about some really revealing stuff. I'm going to be talking about my music. I'm going to be talking about my scandal. And I'm going to be talking about the highs, the lows, the tears of joy, the tears of sorrow. I'm fast approaching 50, so I guess this is halfway at least in my life, so it's time I told a few stories. It's kiss and tell, no secrets, no holes barred. This is Jason Brint's Raw, Klubkidz Chronicles.
Just Just want to feel.
So I guess most of the bad things that have happened in my life have been as a result of drug addiction. I've been sober for so long now, it seems like an ancient history. But you know, there was good times with it as well. Don't get me wrong. Some of the great things that happened was through the drug social scene, I guess. And I mean, me becoming a DJ, me becoming a record producer, and starting Klubkidz Productions was probably the good end of the good end, if there is one, the good end of certainly social drug taking. But obviously there was a very dark and bad side as well, and inevitably, if you're someone that works within the club scene for a number of years that's around drink and drugs, the likelihood is you're going to end up with some kind of addiction, and I certainly did. My first substance that I noticed that I became addicted to was crack cocaine. Bizarre, isn't it, to think of me taking stuff like that? But it was many years ago, and you know, I'd always been partying with drugs for a long time, and ecstasy or speed or whatever the club drug was when I was out doing my gigs or partying. But I ended up taking crack cocaine, and then I ended up taking it a lot. And we was in Brighton. I'd moved to Brighton with Scott Jose and his sugar daddy, Tim, who was a nice fellow. They bought a big house down in Brighton, and said to Scott, you know, Scott goes, "Oh, I don't want to live there on my own." And he said, "Oh, take that lovely friend of yours, Jason Prince." And we headed down to Brighton and we moved into a big house. But I'm going to tell you more about that later. But The downside of it, of all the partying there, was that I ended up trying crack cocaine, and then it just it snowballed from there, I guess. And before I knew it, I guess I was doing it every day. I certainly was taking ecstasy every day at one point. I lived there for 3 years, and I was doing like 6 or 7 gigs a week, and then partying in between. I'm going to come back to that all later. Basically, the reason that we went to Brighton is because I was helping Scott get into music production. He was into music production really before I was, and another friend of mine, James Herr, who later became the main producer with me in my Klubkidz Productions team, and he was also wanting to really progress into music production at the time. So him and Scott. And so some of the producers that I'd been working with on some of my singles, I'd had quite a few sort of top 10 dance singles by then. And some of the producers I was working with, Nixie and Paul Tams, had asked me to come and do some tracks down in Brighton with them. And then they was looking to buy a recording studio, a big recording studio, because at the time it was just set up in Nick's house down there. So they got this big recording studio on St James's Street in the centre of the Brighton gay scene. And Scott ended up meeting them, and I took him down, and James ended up meeting him, and then Scott's sugar daddy bought into the business, and basically he put a lot of money into it and stuff. And there was a business down there, and Scott and me moved down and worked at the studio with them, and got this business going. Anyway, partway into all this, of course, is that I ended up taking crack every day. It's funny but not funny, and I ended up in a bit of a pickle with it. And we were having massive parties at the house. I'll tell you all about that later. But anyway, Paul Tams, trying to be cruel to be kind, told my mother, who was horrified and worried, and sent me through an agency. A friend of ours, Linda, sent me to do some contracts abroad to get away from the drug scene, and that it worked. And I had a fabulous time abroad, and I did a couple of contracts, and I'll come back to those later as well. But when I came back, I thought, I don't want to be, I say just an aging cabaret singer anymore. I wanted to move on in my career. And so my friend Dean had come down, and I'd been sober for God knows how long, for about a year, I guess, and then this new drug had come out called ketamine. And anyway, we just tried it, this ketamine, and then these amazing ideas started to come into my head regarding becoming a DJ, becoming a record producer, songwriting ideas, and just opened up another part of my mind which I didn't know existed. And it started me in my train of thought, and that's where I had the idea of becoming the king of the UK club kids. I already had a nice following with my singing and my singles and my gigs. So I thought, let's progress, and I progressed into being a club host, a DJ, and a record producer. And I think the turning point, I started to work with people, and we started to get a sound together, myself and young James, and we used to go into the studio at Anzac at night. We had the spare keys, and we used to go in without anybody knowing and make music without the studio owners knowing and stuff. And a lady had moved to Brighton, and she was an idol of mine from when I was a kid. Viola Wills, the dance soul diva legend. She'd had a couple of big #1 hits around the world. If You Could Read My Mind, which was the theme of Studio 54. That was her #1 in America, and she'd had #1s in Europe. A big hit, Gonna Get Along Without You Now. Gonna get along without you now. And she'd come to Brighton to make an album with Paul and Nick, and she was staying down there. And then she ended up doing some songwriting and music with James and me in the night to help us. And I didn't realise that Viola had actually got cancer, and she knew she was dying, but she kept it a secret, and we ended up producing an album in secret, or half an album in secret, James and me with Viola. And really it was her gift to us as young producers or new producers, and that became our first album release, Viola Wills, The Essential Viola Wills. And I'm so proud of the album, and we remixed some of her old songs, and we did some new songs as well. And really that was a starting point, a good starting point as a record producer for James and me doing Klubkidz.
Like a warrior that fights and wins the battle. I know the taste of victory. Though I went through some nights consumed by shadow and was crippled emotionally. Fights and wins the battle. I know the taste of victory. Though I went through some nights consumed by the shadow and was crippled emotionally.
Somehow I made it through the heartache. Yes, I did. I escaped. I found my way out of the darkness. Kept my faith. Kept my faith. When the river was deep, I didn't falter. The mountain was high, I still believed. When the valley was low, it didn't stop me. No, no. Knew you were waiting. Knew you were waiting for me.
With an endless desire, I kept on searching. Sure, in times I eyed for me. The bridge is on fire, the hurt is over. One touch and you set me free.
No, I don't regret a single moment. No, I don't. Looking back, when I think of all those disappointments, I just laugh. I just laugh, 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 laugh. When the river was deep, I didn't falter. The mountain was high, I still believed. When the valley was low, it didn't stop me. No, no. Knew you were waiting. Knew you were waiting for me.
Though we were drawn together, destiny, I know this love we share was meant to be.
Knew you were waiting. Knew you were waiting.
So the start of my Klubkidz career started, 20 years ago, down in Brighton, and James's little studio in Aldershot, which we had a great time in, and then eventually moving the studio up to the Sharp Boys studio in Streatham, and then onto the Barbican studio with Nick and Scott and everything. Yeah, just made some great music and just had some wonderful times. But yeah, the start of it was with Viola and James and Scott in Brighton, but the end of it obviously came with my Scandal, which I hate talking about because it feels like a different person. It doesn't feel like Jason, it feels like a different person who's in that Scandal. But I've never talked about it publicly before, but I guess I need to at some point, so now's as good a time as any. Just thinking back to that time, it was 2 years ago that I got arrested, first arrested, and it was a very dark time in my life. The addiction, which it always is in hand with addiction, was the worst addiction and probably only real addiction I've ever had, if I'm truthful, and that was crystal meth. I'd had a problem with it before, and I'd been taking it too much, and then I split with my ex, Matt Unique, and I hit it heavy, and then I stopped, for a whole year. No drink, no drugs, and it was probably the most productive year of my adult life. It was when we did the Love is the Only Law project for the 50 years legal. I was in the movie, I did the book, and I had a whole year sober. Anyway, my dad got ill. My dad being the love of my life, really, better than any man I've ever been with. Certainly more genuine and more caring and more loving. He was everything to me, my dad. Anyway, he got ill and it didn't look good. And I don't know, I just gradually fell off the wagon. First of all with drink, and then very quickly, whenever I fall off the wagon, it's always if I'm drunk and then I end up taking drugs. Anyway, so I fell off the wagon, and it was a gradual thing, and then before I knew it, it was all the time. And then we had the news, with dad's cancer and his dementia, and I was taking him up to he had operations and things, and I was taking him up to Guy's 3, 4, 5 times a week for his radiotherapy, and I was just taking crystal meth more and more, really. Bizarre drug to take, because it certainly doesn't really make you feel that great. Anyway, I was, and that's just how it was. And but we got through the radiotherapy, and it basically got to when they just said there's no more they can do, and it was a terminal diagnosis for Dad, and there was no point in taking radiotherapy anymore. So, I just masked everything to try and put a brave face on for Dad, and I was taking crystal meth all the time. But in amongst all of this, darkness, there was a little light, or at least I thought there was a little light, and a lovely friend of mine, Josh, who was flatmates to George Mason, Porn Star, and Ollie London, who had also become a really, really close friend of mine at the time. And I absolutely loved Ollie, and I loved George, and I loved Josh, and I used to go around there sort of for refuge in a way. to get away from home sometimes because Dad was at home dying. And I used to go. Anyway, I started this little thing with Josh, but it wasn't a boyfriend situation. But it had been 5 years by then since I'd split with Matt. It was about 7-8 years now. So it's probably about 5, maybe 6 years since I split with Matt, and I think I'd had sex once in that time because I was so scarred after splitting with Matt Unique. And Josh, I don't know. I didn't realise that he liked me in that way at all. Anyway, we ended up having a little, I suppose, a sort of a fling. But I never went all the way with him with sex, but I did have a little, a few little scenarios with him. And I liked more than anything spending time in his company, and we was going out to my friend's gigs, go see Kelly Wilde at the RBT and go and visit friends of mine in other towns. And he was just such a wonderful, lovely person to be around. As was Ollie, but there was nothing sexual with me and Ollie. But we were inseparable, like best friends. I just absolutely loved him. Anyway, I would spend a lot of time around there, and George is an old friend of mine, but George struggles with addictions like I do. And our friendship was sometimes a little bit strange because one of us would be on the wagon and one would be, etc. But I still loved him. We got a lot of love for each other. And anyway, so I would go over and see Ollie and see George and see Josh. And I got into this bit of a scenario with Josh, is that he I did this sort of role play thing, I guess, and I've never done anything like that before. I mean, I'd been celibate predominantly for 5 years at that point because I was so fucked up over that. And Josh was very naughty, but in a naughty but nice, I called him, naughty but nice. And I'm going to have to just say what happened anyway. Basically, we got into this role play scenario, and also we got into this scenario of going on webcam. And I joined an app which I'm not one for apps or anything like that. I've never particularly been a gaydar person or a grinder person. I joined it and cancelled it, I was a bit of a time waster, to be quite honest, most of the time on those sort of apps. I preferred meeting people when I was out and about, but I wasn't on the whole boyfriend scenario, and I wasn't on the sex scenario, to be honest. However, Josh made me feel very sexual. And lovely young guy, he's about 26 years old, 25, 26, and just very, very lovely company. And we got into these naughty role play scenarios. And I joined this app because I didn't really like it. So I joined this app called Kick, where you could chat and meet people and this, that, and the other. And I'd ended up foolishly on crystal meth after a week of being on crystal meth. I ended up joining one of the chat rooms, which was called Schoolyard Fantasy. Very bizarre, but anyway, it seemed like a horny idea at the time. And then one night, Josh and me went on the cam, and we were both high. And it seemed horny at the time with this roleplay thing, and we pretended that he was a schoolboy. We didn't see his face in it, and I suppose the roleplay fantasy, we acted as if it was real, but it wasn't real. It was only a roleplay situation. It just seems so ridiculous now. But anyway, that's what we did, and then Josh had to go and do a punter. They all used to do punters. Ollie went to the punter. George was filming or something. The night before, George, I'd stayed over at their place, and I had crystal meth with me, and I was going off secretly into the bathroom doing it, as you do. It's a bit of a shameful drug to do, and obviously, I just had news about Dad. I've not been in the radiotherapy anymore, so I just went to Bender, and I didn't sleep for about a week. Anyway, I ended up with George's because it was always a nice place to go for a refuge, and George always made me feel welcome, so did Ollie, and so did God. I was sneaking off doing crystal in the bathroom, and then George noticed, and then suddenly George wanted some. I said, oh no, because otherwise I get the blame every time you go back. And anyway, he wanted some, so he went into the bathroom and was doing some. Then Josh wanted some, and he was sneaking off into his room. And in the end, it was only Ollie that wasn't doing it. And we was all doing it secretly and separately, and then I ended up in bed with Josh and this whole scenario and everything. And anyway, when all the boys went out to do clients, I went back onto this kick thing that I'd done a camp on with Josh, and I went back onto this kick thing and was chatting to people, and I thought, oh my god, I just don't want to have a come down here at George's place. I'd been up for a week. I was pretty mental. I mean, I used to go really mental. And I didn't want to go back home and mum and dad see me like that with everything that was going on at home. And I just went on to this chat fantasy thing, and I'd gone on a couple of times before and just made things up in this fantasy room. I mean, I hadn't had sex for 5 years, so I thought it was pretty harmless, making things up in a chat room, pretending scenarios, etc, etc. And anyway, in this particular chat room, I thought I'd find out if anybody had any drugs, because my drugs had nearly gone. And one guy, because everyone was in America or other countries in Israel, I mean, I was never likely to meet anybody off any of these things. They was all in other countries. It seemed so harmless. And some people wanted to send me naughty photos and that, and I foolishly gave my WhatsApp number out to a few people, and then they asked, and I didn't have any naughty photos because I was the second user on my dad's mobile contract, and so I had an over 18 restriction on my phone, so that I couldn't go on any porno sites or anything like this, because I thought, oh my god, can you imagine if the bill came in and it was something like that, or something happened and my dad came back. So I never went on anything sexual like that. But people wanted to send me these things, so I thought, oh, WhatsApp would be alright. So I gave my WhatsApp, wasn't really sure what to do. But they wanted pictures, and I didn't have anything. So I just went on to, the only apps I really had was this Kik and Facebook and stuff. So I just went onto my Facebook and did some screenshots of schoolboys and sent them on the thing, which I thought was totally harmless. It was immoral, not illegal, but anyway, it got me into a lot of trouble because the fantasy made-up stories I'd done, I just picked names out the top of the hat, which were just like names of people on Facebook when I went onto my Facebook to save photos. So I get this message from someone who said, because I put into the main chat room, oh, has anybody got any drugs? I've got drugs. Someone said, oh, they've got speed. And I thought, oh my goodness. I used to take speed years ago, and it seemed like such a harmless drug compared to things like crystal meth and GHB, GBL. So I said, oh, where are you? He said, oh, Elephant and Castle. I said, no, because I'm in Oval. Anyway, he wanted to come over. I said, no. I think he still thought that I got Josh tied up there, and he thought Josh was a schoolboy, which he wasn't. He was a fully grown man. And he wasn't there anyway, he'd gone. Anyway, I said, oh, no, can I come and meet you? Cut a couple of story short. I went to meet him to get this speed, and I said I'd give him what I had left of my crystal meth and GHB. I had about 2 little bits like that, crystal meth, and some GHB, about 4 millilitres of GHB or something. Anyway, I went to meet this guy. Went up into his flat, or what I thought was his flat in Elephant and Castle, and offered him this crystal. He goes, oh no, that isn't what I take. I said, oh. And I was so confused. I thought, am I talking to the right person? Because obviously I'd been up for a week as well, and I didn't know anyone I was talking to. Most of the people were just in America or around the world. And anyway, I got really confused. And then I said, you don't even seem gay. Are you gay? I mean, I just thought what I was doing there. He said, oh no. He said, no, I'm straight. And we started to tell me about this little girl and this and that. I said, oh no, I'm not interested in girls. I went, God, no. I said, I'll tell you what, do you want some of this? Like, he didn't take crystal meth, and he didn't take G. And I said, oh, you are the man with speed. He said, yeah, there was speed on the side. He said, help yourself, so I took a little bit in the bag. Anyway, I said, I'm going to go, mate. He goes, oh, can I come to yours and see this boy? I said, I thought you weren't gay. And he said, oh, I said, oh, no. I said, no. I said, I'm just going to go to a friend's now. And he said, oh, can I give you a lift? I said, oh, yeah, you can give me a lift if you want. And he gave me a lift and dropped me round to a friend in Brixton. I just wanted to go there and take speed, really, and hide from my parents until I came off crystal meth. And I got into my friend's house, and then the next thing I know, there was a knock on the door, and 10 police officers turned up, and they thought that I was head of some kind of paedophile ring. Anyway, obviously it changed my life, and really that day was the end of my 35-year music career, 20-year Klubkidz career that day, because they raided all my friends' houses, they raided the studio, and I'd been naughty, but nothing like what was taught or what was presumed from my creative fantasy writing and stuff. So that day the press got hold of it, the gay press and blogs and social media, and really it was, before I even went on trial, it was trial by social media, and that was the end of a long career and a long Klubkidz reign of King Jason Prince.
Listening to Marvin. true.